It's 2023. This year's going to be good. Hello, I am Hannah, if you are new here. Hello, I read books. I very rarely remember the plot of them. Welcome to what I am calling my reading intentions for the year. And I'm using that word deliberately because as soon as I start using words like goal or target or even challenge, that's just because of my psychology and who I am as a person is like a surefire way to just completely sap all of my motivation to do the thing. I don't do anything that I feel like I have to do willingly. And because this is a place where I just hang out for fun, I want to keep it that way. That being said, there are a couple of avenues that I want to wander down a little more this year. Some places I'd like to spend some more time. Some things I would like to consider. I am putting no numbers on anything. My prediction is that I am going to read less this year. I think I'm going to read fewer books this year than I read last year. Last year I read 150-ish. I think I'm going to read less, but I think I'm going to read better. What I'm going to start by talking about, paradoxically, for having just said, I'm going to talk about my intentions. I'm actually, one second while I sort my camera out. I'm back. Maybe my reading resolution or like my channel resolution should be like to just try and be like just a tiny bit more professional, but fuck it. I don't know what I'm doing and I like it that way. What was I saying? See, a person who knew what they were doing would have checked what they just said before they pressed record. But then, you know, who wants to do it that way and know what they're planning on saying? Not me. So, yes, that was it. So paradoxically, saying I'm going to talk about my reading intentions, I'm going to start by talking about what I intend not to do. What I intend not to do is get caught up in what I feel is sort of obligation reading. So a good example of this is my parents bought me when I was about 12 or 13. I was a massive reader as a kid. Maybe I was a bit older. I don't remember. My inability to remember plot extends to the plot of my own life. I don't know how old I was, an age. But they bought me that book, 1001 Books to Read Before You Die, which is a lovely thing. And I have really, really enjoyed some of the books that I have read from there. But also, I used that book as a like stick to beat myself with. Like I had to read these books. And let's be honest, those sorts of anthologies and compendiums are very much Western literature, are pretty white, are pretty male for the early parts of the canon and stuff. And I couldn't get it out of my head that I should read all of these books. And the thing that really tipped me over a couple of months ago, I think it was actually the month that I started this channel, I read two books from the sort of mid-20th century that I just hated so vehemently and knew I wouldn't like. I knew I wouldn't like them. I knew they weren't my sort of thing. And I read them because they were on this list. And that is what I want to avoid this year. And that comes to, I see a lot of, and I love watching a lot of booktube content where people read entire prize lists. And I think it's great content. And maybe at some point I will have the brain space or feel like I want to do that. But being new here, I want to avoid putting like pressure on myself to read specific things. And instead, this year, I want to really, really properly discover what it is that works for me in a book. like what my perfect book is. Simon at Savidge Reads, whose channel I love, was talking about a similar thing when he was talking about his reading intentions for the year, his reading plans, of kind of wanting to read by whim more, but also really rediscover who you are as a reader and what you want in a book. So that is my first thing that I'm going to try not to do. We're not reading things because we feel like we have to read them. And that extends to not reading things just because I see them all over Bookstagram. I know in my bones, I'm not going to like Colleen Hoover. She's not going to be a favourite author. And yet every single time I see her books crop up on Instagram, I'm like, oh my God, maybe I have to read that. Like, the FOMO thing with like bookish social media is a thing that I need to counteract. So over here you probably won't see that many hypey books, but I mean, maybe you will. Maybe that's where my whim will take me. Anyway, so that's a very long way of introducing the concept of my reading this year as more whim-based, more like a few things that I want to discover, as I said, and some avenues that I want to explore. But also, I want to read more of the books that I have. As I got more into reading again over the last couple of years, I've hoarded books, and I buy far more books than I read. I've managed over the last couple of years to really get my unread books on my shelves down, but I have 3 shelves here, and I could have counted how many books is on them, but like, let's just call it 100-ish. 30? Are there 30 books on a shelf? Who knows? And I would like to get to those. Or I think there's a lot of books on here that were maybe like impulse charity shop purchases that I've had for years. So I also, along with that obligation thing, I want to get better at, if a book's on my shelf and I haven't read it for 5 years, there's probably a reason I haven't picked it up. And so I think I want to get better at asking myself, do I really want to read this book? Why haven't I read it? Am I planning on reading it in the next 6 months? And if I'm not, do I need to keep it? So I would like to get these unreads down. I've seen a few people try over the year to get to like a 0 TBR where there's no unread books on their shelves. I really like having like a chunk of unread books on my shelves because I'm a mood reader, and I don't like the idea of there only being like 3 titles on my bookshelf for me to pick from. But if I could get it down to 1 unread shelf and then move into more of a 1 in, 1 out policy, I think I would feel better about that. Because I also think I'm sitting on some absolute gems. There are some authors here who I have never read before, and I think I'm really going to like. There's Sarah Waters. I've never read Sarah Waters. I've never read Patricia Highsmith. She's on this shelf. So I'm really looking forward to getting to these. And alongside that, I say this, I've been saying this for 2 years at least. It's a running joke in our household that it takes me a really long time from the moment that I say I want to do something to actually doing it. This channel is one of the few exceptions where I decided about a month before starting it that I wanted to start it, and it was a big brave thing for me to do. And I moved comparatively quickly for my normal speed. But normally I decide I want to do something and it takes me 1 to 2 years to actually do it. Because I'm a procrastinator. And one thing I've been saying for ages is that I want to use my local library more. I live in, I have a local library that's like at the end of my street that seems pretty well stocked. Newcastle City Centre Library is amazing. There's also the Lytton Phil. There's 7 Stories, which is a massive children's archive. Like, Newcastle has so many good libraries. They're not all free to use, but they're great. And definitely like the local libraries, the City Library and the North Tyneside libraries here, I want to use them partly because I want to be able to take chances with my reading a bit more. I don't necessarily want to be buying titles that I'm less than 50% sure I'm going to like, but I do really like reading out of my comfort zone, and libraries are perfect for that because, you know, if I get a title out that's like, I don't know, like a romance, I don't read a lot of romance and it's not really a genre that I read in, but I might want to take a title out of the library and go, oh, okay, well, I didn't enjoy it, but no harm, no foul, it was only a library book. Whereas if I bought it, I would feel like a mug because I'd be like, come on, Hannah, you knew you weren't going to like that book. But also, you know, I might have liked it, but never mind. So for that reason, I want to use the libraries more, but also obviously just they're such an important social resource and they are in constant threat. And the more people who use them and are seen to be using them and talk about using them, the longer they are to survive. So I'm going to be getting to my library this year. Maybe this month. Oh, I'm not going to fucking lie. I'm probably not going to go this month. I'll get there soon. So that's one thing I want to be doing, using the library more. So probably not buying as many books this year as I've bought in previous years, and having more of a knocking down these numbers and then borrowing new titles from the library. I also have, and if you follow me on Instagram, then you might have seen this. One of the big things I want to do this year is read more local authors. So I live in the Northeast. I'm not from here originally, but it has been my home for a very long time. And I love it here, but Northeast voices and Northeast writers are not as represented in the big publishing houses as, you know, as maybe writers from more southern regions might be. And I really, really want to do my bit to champion local talent and local voices. So I want to, and this is the only thing that I am going to put a number on, I think, I would like to read at a minimum of one book a month that is by a local author. Now, ideally, that will be a local author that is sort of maybe an emerging or contemporary author, so that you can know, you know, you're actually supporting them and getting them out there. But there are also some authors that, you know, are big names who are from the Northeast, like David Almond, like Pat Barker and Anne Cleves and people like that. And yeah, I'll mix in some of those, and definitely at some point I will be reading Bob Mortimer's novel because I love Bob Mortimer. So that is going to be a real focus for me this year. Alongside, I've been trying to do this for the last few years, but if I want to buy a book, buying from a local indie where possible. And bookshop.org is a really good way of doing that if I can't find, there's not many titles that I've not been able to buy from there rather than from that website that is decimating the publishing industry. So they're the main ones for kind of general themes of reading, but there are a couple of specific things I want to do. But first I want to have a drink. One sec. Oh, that's nice. The old mystery beer delivery. It's a good one. Good. Yes, so what I did do last year and did enjoy doing is Storygraph, the website where you can track your reading. It's a bit like Goodreads, but I never used Goodreads, and I like Storygraph because it produces pretty graphs. So they do, well, there's tons of reading challenges on there, but there's two in particular that they host every year that I completed last year, and I will complete again, hopefully this year, and that is their genre challenge and their Read the World challenge. So firstly, the Read the World challenge is simply 10 countries. They pick 10 random countries every year, and you read a book from or set in those countries. I try, where possible, obviously, to read a book by an author who is from there, and ideally for the book to be set there as well. I haven't done that perfectly every year. Like last year, I read a book by Violet Cooper Smith for Vietnam, and she's Vietnamese American. But the book was set in Vietnam, but it wasn't like a translated fiction. I think that's what I mean. I would prefer, where possible, to read something I think that was originally written in the language of that nation and then translated out. But anyway, so in case it's of interest to you and you want to know the countries, this year's countries are Argentina, Colombia, Cuba, Italy, Nigeria, Norway, Pakistan, South Africa, Syria, and Trinidad and Tobago. I think I have a few books on my shelves for some of those. Definitely I have Argentina and Italy and South Africa, I think. I think I've got a couple of Nigerian books queued up on Scribd. But I think maybe what I'm going to do for that is do a... Last year I left like 3 titles to the end of the year, and then I started to feel like they were becoming compulsory reading then. So I think I want to try and like chip away at those goals more regularly over the year. So I might maybe aim to give myself December and May off, maybe, because May is my birthday month. And I think in May maybe I might just want to read whatever the fuck I want to read, which may end up being one of these books. But then I might try and do one a month, and I think I'm going to vlog them because I really enjoyed doing the Read the World vlog that I did in December. But reading 3 books ended up taking me ages, and I don't like when video projects kind of are like hanging over me. So yeah, maybe I'll do like one vlog a month where I read a title from each of those countries, and that might be fun, mightn't it? You don't have to say if that would be fun. It would be fun for me, and that's enough. And then so that's the Read the World. There's also the genre challenge. I'll read the prompts to you because I got them written down. Some of these I am more excited for than others. So a contemporary or literary fiction novel with disability rep. The book I'm planning on reading for Argentina will actually tick that box as well. So yay. A non-fiction book about startups. I'm sure I can find something. I actually think I've got a book upstairs that I got through work that was like by the woman who was something to do with Netflix. Does that count as a startup? I mean, like, that's not really the sort of non-fiction I read, but I'll have a look into it. There might be kind of a book that's got like a cool angle on it, but I'm not really interested in reading like a business book. A sapphic romance novel. I think I've got some of them on my shelves. A biography about someone you don't know much about will be interesting because I tend to prefer autobiography or memoir to biography. But maybe I could find like a nasty figure and read a biography about them, because they wouldn't have been honest in their autobiography, right? Who knows? A children's book you never read as a kid. There'll be loads of those. I got some massive gaps in my childhood reading. A popular science book. I've got an idea for that one already. Fantasy novel written by an author of colour. I think that one will be pretty easy to hit too. Non-fiction history book about an LGBTQIA plus issue or person. I read so many queer non-fiction books last year, some of which were historical. I have to see what is left on my shelves that I've not read yet. I actually think I've got by Julia Shaw, so maybe I'll read that. A horror or a mystery novel written by a woman or a non-binary author. I actually think the book I'm reading right now covers that. And a travel memoir, which sounds fun. I like travel writing, but it's not something that I have read a lot of. I've read the like obvious ones, you know, like Bill Bryson, who I love. what's not to like about Bill Bryson. But yeah, so I'll do those. I don't know if I'll vlog those because I just don't know if people will be as interested in the genre one. I might just like flag them in my wrap-ups when I've read something that's for that challenge, and maybe do like a mid-year check-in type video. So that's those. The other thing that I have committed to, for someone who said I don't want to be tied down, I've actually committed to a couple of things. And I'm doing 2 year-long read-alongs of a couple of big classic books. So the first I signed up for is run by Simon at Footnotes and Tangents. And he is doing a year-long read-along of War and Peace, which is a big, big book. And it is a book that I have read before and really, really liked it. I read it when I was about 17. I was that really obnoxious teenager who had a Russian phase. So I read a lot of Dostoevsky, I read a lot of Tolstoy. So I remember really, really liking War and Peace. And I would quite like to revisit it now. But my copy, unfortunately, I bought it secondhand from a charity shop. It's a beautiful 3-volume collection. And when I read them, I didn't really know anything, and I still don't know, about how to take care of leather-bound books. Because I am a spine cracker, and I don't even notice myself doing it. And I opened every one of these volumes, and the spines have come, in some cases, completely off of the volumes. So I don't think my physical copies will stand up to a reread. But I think what I want to do is listen to it on audio. And the great thing about this read along, so in theory, it works out at roughly a chapter a day. But you can do it kind of at any pace that you want. And I am not finding a chapter a day. It's not the right rhythm for me, because I feel like I don't have time to get properly like stuck into it. And I think if I'm listening to the audio, I might be doing like maybe something crafty at the same time. So I'd like, longer than 15 minutes at a go. Otherwise the plot is just not gonna, it's not gonna stick in there. So that's War and Peace. It is now the 10th of January and I haven't started it yet. But the reason is that the audiobook that I've got, which I've got a free download of on Scribd, has a different number of chapters to volume. So the audiobook is in 2 volumes and my book is in 3 volumes, and none of the chapter, like, the audiobook is only going to have something like 70 chapters when the imprint volumes have like 350 chapters. So I need to find a little bit of quiet time where I don't mind sitting and listening to the audiobook and reading my actual hard copy so that I can work out where the points are so that I can be roughly in sync with people. I don't think I'm explaining myself clearly, but I will get to it. And I think probably what I'll do is like a binge midway through January on the 2 weeks that I've missed. But I'm definitely going to do that one because, like I said, I really enjoyed War and Peace, and I really enjoyed the adaptation from a few years ago. So maybe I will listen to War and Peace this year and then celebrate at Christmas by rewatching that adaptation. But I am doing another one, and this one is a book that I haven't read before, and it's Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. And again, this one is organised by Momo at Momo on the Shore, and this has exactly the right number of chapters in, I think, to be a chapter a day. And I did start this one on the 1st of January, and I was diligently reading a chapter a day, but the chapters are so short. They're like 5 pages that I felt like it took me a couple of pages to get into the story and remember where I was at, and then the chapter was over. So I think what I'm going to do with that one is maybe set aside like a Sunday morning to read my 7 chapters of Les Miserables for that week. But I'm looking forward to getting to that one. So those are happening throughout the year, and I will kind of give you a few little updates throughout the year on how those are going, but I'm hoping that I'm going to enjoy them. And then so that's the kind of reading related stuff. Obviously this channel is quite new and I'm still figuring out what content I like to create and how I want to use this channel, because it's, you know, it's just a hobby. But obviously I kind of, there's that balance, isn't there, between I want to do just kind of whatever I want to do, but also I do really want to create a bit of a community and have a bit of back and forth with people. And in order to do that, I kind of have to create content that people want to watch. So if you have any requests for things that you would like to see me read or talk about, let me know. But I'm just planning on winging it, frankly. I have no plans in the imminent future to kind of commit to an upload schedule or however many videos I'm gonna create a month or whatever. I think that would completely kill the enjoyment for me. But yeah, I'm enjoying figuring out what I like to do and what I like to do less, actually. So that's fun. But there are a couple of other sort of related things that I want to do this year. And they're to do with, I guess, kind of half using this channel to like get back into some hobbies and things that I've neglected a bit. The first is Spanish. So I did Spanish at GCSE. Spanish is the language that I learned at school. And I was never brilliant at it. I think I got through my Spanish GCSE by just being like really good at revising. I'm not convinced I ever really understood what the fuck I was talking about. I was just good at pretending. But I have been using Duolingo sporadically for the last few years, and I really want to get better at it, because what I would love to be able to do this year is read a book in Spanish. Now, ideally, that would be a Spanish classic in the original Spanish. I think that's probably a bit ambitious. I think probably what I will end up doing is reading a book that I know well in English in Spanish. I mean, the obvious one for me to do that with would be the works of She Who Shall Not Be Named, but you know, I'll have a think about what might be a good one. One of my colleagues is Spanish, and she very graciously lets me write all of my emails to her in Spanish. So I might ask her maybe what her favorite like middle grade book was when she was a kid, and maybe I will read that in the original Spanish. So there's that. I also I used to really like drawing and art, and I've really fallen out of the habit of doing it, and I want to get back into it. And I'm really sorry because I can't remember the person's name, but if I find it, I will insert her name, because it was something that I saw that she did and I thought that's a really good idea and I want to do that. So this is theft. But she draws just really, really simply the cover of every book that she reads. And I thought that's really that's such a lovely idea. And then you have this little kind of collection of images to remember your reading by. And I was all up for doing that. And then the first book that I read this year was If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English by Noor Naga. And I don't know if you're familiar with that book cover, but this is what it looks like. It's a bit beyond my current ability. I'm trying to learn how to draw on a tablet. And when I say I'm trying to learn how to draw on a tablet, I started 3 days ago. I've never done it before and I don't really know what I'm doing. So you may, in the near future, see an incredibly bad version of this. If you don't, you will know that I am completely wussed out of doing that. But I will give it a go. I did start trying to do it, but when we were driving back up from the south coast, 6-hour car journey is like a good time to fiddle around and work stuff out. But I was struggling in a car to do digital art, so we'll see. I am part of there's a kind of sibling group to Queer Books Newcastle, which is a queer art group, which I'm also part of. I normally like knit and crochet and stuff, and that's my like contribution to the art scene. But there are a number of digital artists that go there, so maybe I can get their help. Maybe I could get someone else to draw my first book for me. Maybe I will guest star some people for the really difficult book covers. Maybe that's what I'll do. And then the last thing that I think I would like to explore doing, and do let me know if this is something that you'd be interested in doing, but I've spoken to a few people and they seem up for it, is somehow incorporating into the channel some really low stakes writing prompts, exercises, opportunities, maybe some like little writing sprints where I come on live and we just kind of have an opportunity where we write together, maybe putting together some little jars of prompts and pulling one out every couple of weeks, and then we can all kind of do some response writing to themes or topics or colours or whatever. But I would really like to get back into the habit of writing. I have this thing which I think is not uncommon in people who read a lot, in that, or who read critically. Not that I'm like a reviewer, but you know. But I interrogate the books I'm reading, and what that means is I have this want to write. I really, really want to write, but I am so scared that I will be confronted with the fact that I am not good. Because I feel like I really know what good in my eyes looks like. I when I'm reading a book, I'm going, fucking hell, this person's an amazing writer. And I fear having to be confronted with the very real reality that is probably not what I am capable of doing. But I'm never going to get better if I don't practice, am I? So I think I would like to do that here. And yeah, I have a couple of other bits and pieces that I'm planning on doing here, but I think I'm going to sit on them for a little bit because I've been nattering away for ages, and my voice is going because I've still not got over this cough. So that's what I'm planning for 2023. I would love to know what you're planning on doing with your reading in 2023. What do you want to read more of? What do you want to read less of? How do you want to read? Are you interested in doing some writing? Do you know any accessible Spanish books? Can you draw the cover of If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English? What else do I need from you? Just your vibes, guys. Bring your vibes. I'm looking forward to 2023. I think it's going to be fun. Let's go do. Bye.